Hey there.
Who knew?
Here in Tampa, we are saying goodbye to Debbie, gratefully. And
Yeah,
if you're affected,
Debbie
if you're
did Tampa.
not yet affected by Debbie, or if you have been affected negatively by Debbie, our heart goes out to you. We hope the damage was minor,
Yeah.
and that you're recovering. And that's really what this is about: is the reminder that Debbie has given us, and should give all of us, of the importance of having a disaster recovery plan.
Right.
Now, in the corporate world, they call that a continuity of business plan, right? Because you want the business to continue,
Yeah.
right? And so it actually kind of falls into two categories. So there's crisis management and there's disaster recovery. They're really different.
Okay, so let's break them
So
down.
let's do. Thank you. Crisis. So what's a crisis?
Oh, that's when all hell is breaking loose.
Yes.
I mean,
But
it's when things are really off.
Oftentimes, crisis is used in terms of management, right? We manage a crisis, right? It's something that happens.
We try.
It's an event. Yeah. So things that I would consider a crisis in a business setting would be something like a data breach, right? Getting a virus on your computer that locks it down, and,
Right.
wants to hold your data hostage.
Or in a hurricane situation, sometimes we lose power for hours. And days.
That could be a crisis. If your business was running automatically kind of on your website, or if you had mission critical stuff that needed to be running and you had a power outage, so a power outage could then be certainly a crisis.
Absolutely. We've had that.
And battery backups and so forth. Data loss would be, a crisis could be as simple as, your hard drive dies. And if you don't have a backup, that's a crisis for your business if all of your data
And if you
is
don't
there.
have a backup, get one. They're cheap and easy.
There's so many things that could be a crisis. An investigative reporter is knocking at your front door with a camera crew. That's a crisis.
Or the IRS knocking at your door.
You or an employee posted something on social media that was in error or misunderstood or whatever, and it created a big backlash against the company. That's a crisis. These are things that can be managed and they can be planned for.
Right.
Now, can we have a plan for every possible eventuality? No. But there are classes of things, like the things that we've talked about.
Right.
Data,
Battery backups.
data management.
Right.
Those are classes of things that we can plan for, and they're not that hard to plan for.
Correct.
Well, of course, the social media part of it, but it's still, you can. I have a certification. You can make a plan. There's a whole process for that.
There you go.
So that would be crisis management.
Right.
Okay. Now, disaster.
Yeah.
When I think of disaster, I think more in terms of something that has completely ceased business operations. It's an event like an act of God, a storm, a flood, a fire, earthquake, hurricane, thing where the business cannot remain open for some period of time.
Right.
The question is, how long?
Yeah.
Really, that's when we talk about disaster plan. Now, a much smaller disaster that might kind of bridge the gap between crisis and disaster is, for example, you're in a rented space.
Okay.
And the landlord gives you notice, I'm selling the property, you need to leave.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're running a restaurant or a store and that happens, what do you do?
Yeah, what do you do?
That could be a crisis or a disaster, and it depends on how much lead time you get,
Or it can be a gift in undercover.
It could be. Oh, and so an event that ceases operations, another thing would be not quite as disastrous as a total, like a tornado taking the roof off of the building,
right.
But what if, in our case, in Florida, there's a lot of commercial properties that have a flat roof. So what if the roof caves in? Water builds up on the roof for some reason, and the roof caves in, or you have there's a flood in your store.
Right.
You can't open the store for business, and you're now dependent on a series landlord and
Insurance
contractors and insurance and all. There's time.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to take this now to how do we think about these things?
Okay.
Like when you heard crisis management, we talked about crisis, and then you heard the disaster. How did the two feel to you? How did they land or strike you as being different?
Believe it or not, crisis hits me harder than than the other one did.
That's really interesting.
I think it's the word. I think it's the, it's just so in your face almost. Crisis is whereas disaster, like I said, it's just it's an interesting.
It's going to be, and this is wonderful. It's going to be somewhat individual,
I would think
as
so.
to how you respond. Like, one of the things about the disaster is that it could easily take us into an all or nothing thinking about risk. Like,
Right.
it might be that some people would say, "Well, I've got insurance. I'll collect an insurance check and I'll figure it out after that.
Right.
And I don't need a plan beyond that." Maybe not. But so you were saying that the disaster didn't hit you as hard. Maybe for some people it's because it's something you have no control over, right?
That's true.
There's almost no response. I mean, yes, you have to do something. You have to go on, assuming that you've lived through whatever the event was. But it almost seems too big to plan for, and therefore, I won't think about it. Whereas a crisis, that could easily be of your own making.
True.
And you have to respond to it.
Right.
You have to do something.
And it's
you don't get a check.
Right. And crisis is more of management, and whereas a disaster is out of your hands.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. That's how I define the two. Now we can play with the definitions, but if we agree to define like that, then one is something we can respond to. We may not be in our control, but we can respond to it and have to. And the disaster, there may be no response. It may literally be moving.
True.
Or business is done. And that's sad.
Right.
But it could happen. Okay, you've got a store location. Your location is not the only location in the area,
right.
Assuming you're in a well-populated area. So one part of a plan could be keeping your eye out, and just locating alternate locations that are possibilities.
True.
And possibly having a realtor, on your team that is keeping you aware of costs and leases, and maybe having relationships with some commercial property owners.
Oh, true.
So that, because there might be properties that are sitting vacant that you're not even aware of that that you could move into quickly. Another thing would be
better
warehousing, temporary warehousing, or I've even seen businesses run out of the storage things with the roll-up metal doors, right? Lots of them. So if you, depending on the nature of your business, you might be able to lift and shift or have your business separate from your inventory and your storage, such that your storage is, you have some storage off-site. You've already got that.
True.
And so you've got kind of a backup plan there.
Right.
That you can keep running. That's a physical implementation of the same idea of having an off-site data backup.
Right.
Having your data in the cloud and separate backup somewhere.
Which we do.
So, how the first step of having a plan is what we're talking about, noticing the difference between the two, and do I have a plan for that, and then how that impacts us. Like, not having a plan, does that terrify me? Do I just freeze up and say, oh, it's too big, I can't think about it, I'm gonna and I'm gonna get on Facebook?
And I think too, it really kind of depends, and this is something we all need to think about, is if somebody has an illness that they're down with for a while, what backup plans do you have for that? That is, yes, that's
continuity
beyond,
of business once again.
Right.
If the entire business depends on a single person being there, anything can happen. Accidents happen. Accidents can't be predicted or planned for. As far as, well, it's not going to happen this month. An accident happens when an accident happens. So
that's why it's called an accident.
Having a plan, for some sort of a plan, and it may be a plan that you can't put into place tomorrow.
Yeah.
It may be a long-term plan of, wow, I need to train someone to fill my shoes. I need to, we need to cross-train in our business. We need to have SOPs and processes written out so that somebody can come in that works maybe in another business, similar in the same industry, but they can come in and they can work from the book, and we could get back to business real fast. So all of these things are definitely worth thinking about if you value your business and you want it to
and we know
have
it's scary.
continuity.
We know it is. Nobody wants to think about this stuff. But if you don't think about it, if you're not even somewhat prepared for it, then the likelihood of surviving is your business surviving is almost nil.
So the price, think about the price. The price of the discomfort of thinking about it is much less than the price of not having a plan.
Right.
So we are available to help with that if you'd like to talk through it on many different levels. And we look forward to seeing you in another video. Thanks.